Hi, I'm Sami, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. I am super excited because I have Suzanne Yada of Yada Creative on my show today. Now, we're going to take a journey through time, space, and all that yada yada. So, Suzanne, thank you so much for being on my show.
Yeah, absolutely. So my main bread and butter gig is as a Facebook and Instagram marketing specialist. I help creative entrepreneurs in particular with figuring out their ad strategy. And then I went into that line of business so I could have some flexibility to do music. I'm a singer-songwriter at Little Spiral. And then I've got some side gigs coming up that I hope to talk about, because it's a lot, and it's also exactly the kind of life that I chose to lead. So here I am, and this is what I'm doing now.
Awesome. You're a multi-passionate person.
That's the word.
There you go. And a lot of my listeners are, so it's definitely super awesome. Now, you started your career, like we go into college, you had a BA in business and journalism. How was that? That seems like some different, not like opposites, but some different tracks. How did that get you started?
Yeah, so I actually went to school in about 2008, right when the journalism industry was imploding and just before the rest of the economy imploded. And I was very fascinated about business models, particularly around journalism. But what I realized over the years is the reason I've been drawn to journalism was storytelling and spreading good information. And that applies to everything that I do. And that translates into so many different things. So I thought originally when I signed up for that coursework, originally thought I was going to start my own magazine. So I wanted to be able to run the business of a magazine, and the best program, at least in California out here for that, was San Jose State. Signed up, showed up, got connected with the entrepreneurial crowd that's right there in Silicon Valley, and I never quite left the Bay Area. Didn't have the guts, because it just it fit me really, really well. Yeah, so originally I went into the major in journalism and a minor in business so I could run my own magazine. And then when journalism kind of fell apart, and then businesses everywhere kind of fell apart, I'm like, okay, all right, so what now? And I never assumed that I would get a degree like the traditional job path of you get a piece of paper that has your name on it that says you can now be hired. So I never assumed that. However, it was very helpful to get connected like in my college years, to do the networking, to do the internships, to get connected with that. And then my first job straight out of college was at an investigative reporting outlet, doing the tech and the web and the social media and a bunch of pretty much everything but the actual investigative reporting itself. And I loved that job, but then journalism started getting even harder and harder to sustain people, and eventually got laid off. And so that's what started me on, okay, well, I'm very interested in storytelling. I'm very interested in getting good info out there. And I'm very interested in this kind of one-to-many kind of communications. I also happen to be a natural at a lot of the techie, internet-y things that a lot of my business owner friends and entrepreneurial friends were not. So I was like, aha, so storytelling, one-to-many, messaging, internet-y, perfect. I will start doing digital marketing for people.
Oh, cool. And is that sort of where it looks like you also you were a founder for Trove Scout. That was in 2014 after you worked for the Center for Investigative Reporting. How did that kind of work with starting Little Spiral? Did you try to start with one thing and then realize, hey, I like to wear all these different hats? How, especially since after reading your article, which for folks who are interested, it's called The Email That Started My Business. I know that this is a big question, but how did these sort of, okay, I'm going to do all these things because it's a lot and most people are over. How did you get the guts to be like, you know what? I'm in one of the most expensive cities in the world. I chose a crazy major that's not really working for the economy. Oh yeah, there's a recession.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll be 100% honest. I was overwhelmed to a pretty severe degree. After my layoff, I was like, oh my gosh, I have some severance. I've got a little bit of cushion. I could do whatever I wanted. And I was so overwhelmed by all of the options that I basically did none of it for a couple of months. I just was in paralysis, basically. I thought that I wanted to just do music full time and take advantage of all this time. And I was too new at it and didn't know what I was doing, and or being in business myself. I was too new at that and didn't know what I was doing. So the only reason I got pulled out of it was because I ended up taking a course. It happened to be a local course here in the Bay Area. So it was a reason, it brought structure back to my day. Because after 9 to 5, a whole lifetime of you show up at 9, you leave at 5, or at school, you show up at 8:30, you leave at 3. All I had to do was kind of show up and be my magical self. And all of a sudden, I'm in a situation where I don't have that structure anymore. So I decided to take a class that gave me that structure, and that got me out of bed and thinking about things and going through it. And through that course, it's actually called the Optima program, and I'm really proud to be a teacher of that course now. And it's a program out here in Oakland. But going through that course, I do highly recommend, if it's online, if it's offline, if it's whatever, going to a live course where there are actual mentors that you can talk with and work through and have scheduled meetings. Like that doing it together thing was the thing that like changed things for me. So I had a time where I'd show up and develop my business ideas. So you mentioned Trove Scout, and that was the first business idea that I tried to develop through this program. And it was an online platform. It's too complicated to talk about, which is probably why I ditched the idea. But, just thinking about running a tech startup in this Silicon Valley was also really overwhelming. So I basically, my entire journey was like bringing myself up to the edge of overwhelm and going, no. And then figuring out where my place is, where I didn't feel overwhelmed, stressed out, about to cry all of the time. So when I developed this business plan for the tech startup and realized, okay, maybe I don't want the 20 employees under my wing quite yet, because I'm just straight out of a 9 to 5 and I didn't feel prepared for that. Mm-hmm. I switched to freelancing, and that's when I got hooked up with another mentor through the same program, but who specialized in freelancing. So I realized that was the thing for me. Like everybody has a different path. Everybody has different things that they're drawn to. And it's really important to be in tune with that and recognize that overwhelm is totally normal. It's totally natural. And if you're in it all of the time, maybe reassess something. Maybe there's something else that will work better for you. So when I transitioned there, I went into freelancing. That's when I sent out that email that I wrote about on medium.com. I knew I had all these skills, and I knew that somebody somewhere could pay me money for some of it, whether it is done for you or do it together, or whatever services they needed. I sent out an email. I basically looked at the article in summary. You'll find a little more, including the exact template that I wrote if you look up on Medium.
It will be in the show notes. Don't worry.
It'll be in the show notes. Yes. But in short, I knew that I had been messaging people and networking here and there, showing up to places and making connections. So I looked in my sent folder in my Gmail over the past 6 months and just selected certain people that I knew if they wouldn't, if they were going to be my first clients, or if they knew somebody that were going to be my first clients. And I selected probably about 200 or so names. I don't remember exactly. And I sent a mass email. And I feel on one hand, I don't want to encourage spamming. I really don't, because I really hand selected exactly the right people who cared about who I was and what I was doing. And I cared about what they were and what they were doing.
Yeah, it was a curated list. You went through the network. It's not like you scraped a bunch of emails off.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was a fear that held me back for a long time. I don't want to spam all these people. Like, no, get over it. This is about business. This is about marketing, but it's like a more human one-on-one. Literally, I know you and I know your life story, and I'm going to email you this. So I had about 200 people or so that were on the email list, and I basically said, hey, I've got all of these interests and all of these things. How much would you pay to rent my brain for an hour? And which one of these would you select? I was really surprised that I got a whole lot of response. I thought I would get like maybe 10 or so. I got like 60 or 70. I don't really remember the numbers. I think I have them in my post. But what I also did was, based on their responses, calculated my starting range of consulting fee. And anybody who said below that, I emailed them back and I said, well, okay, so I'm going to start out at $100 an hour. I took everybody's, prices and calculated that was the average. I know you said less, but here's what I'm going to do for you. Because you helped me out, I'm going to give you your first hour for whatever you asked, whatever you said. And I got my first clients that way.
Oh, wow, that's super clever, because you also, not only are you getting your first clients, it's all people who know, like, and trust you already, so they're willing to be guinea pigs, and that's, I think, is a difficulty for a lot of people. Now, I feel like this part of your journey, it seems like it really, I think, gave you the lived experience and the mentorship for you to start one of your other ventures, which is tell me if I'm wrong about it's Get Things Done Club.
Do the Thing Club.
Do the Thing Club.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So over the past 6 years or so, well, I'll briefly bridge the journey between first getting started and then where I am now, where the Do the Thing Club evolved. So going from, originally I was just doing like general digital marketing for people, and it kind of didn't matter who they were or what they needed. I would just jump in and, okay, I'll help you with your email marketing. I'll help you with your tweeting. I'll help you with anything. And then around the first year or so of business, I just noticed and paid attention to what people were really asking for, and also what people were very willing to pay money for to solve their problems. And while a lot of people were asking about Twitter, it was hard to prove the ROI for my clients. So I decided to not specialize in like Twitter or anything like that. But when Facebook and Instagram, Facebook specifically, and then Instagram later, their advertising platforms started becoming more and more open and more results driven. And I can actually say, okay, you spend $1 with me and I get you $2 back. That's when, as soon as I found that niche, that specialty, that thing that just clicked, that's when my business took off. Because starting as a generalist was a good place for me to start to explore a little bit, but then finding that specialty that really fit what I was interested in and what my clients were interested in. And they understood, I will say, they understood they needed to pay for a specialist instead of hiring an intern or asking their niece who knows Twitter, that kind of thing. They understood, okay, this is something that, and so that piece took off. And so I specialized in that for about 4 years or so. And then from that, again, this is all just listening to my clients, listening to people interacting with me and everything. The reason why a lot of my clients came to me to help them with the Facebook ads and not to, there's a free course out there, and I'll tell you all, it's from Facebook itself called Facebook Blueprint. There's a free course. You can go there and you don't even have to pay for a consult. But people paid for the consult because they wanted somebody to walk them through. They wanted somebody to show up with them in their situation, in their accounts, and just walk them through what they needed to know, what they needed to click on, and get that one-on-one thing. And that connection with the Optima program that I went through, that part of like having somebody to show up with you and do things with you was really key for my clients as well as me. So the next evolution and the side project that kind of comes from that, I noticed a lot of my clients were kind of procrastinating their other marketing tasks and things like that. And the things that they wouldn't procrastinate on is when they needed to show up with me over Zoom, when they had some accountability in place.
Like a co-working situation.
Exactly. So through that, I started discovering there's also a really cool tool out there called focusmate.com. And it pairs you up with accountability partners, 24/7. There's people all over the world who will show up with you for an hour, will turn on you kind of get paired up one-on-one with somebody on the other end of the camera. You show up at the designated hour, you say what you're going to work on for that hour, and then you shut up and do it. And at the end, you get a little check-in. And it sounds really simple and maybe kind of dumb, but it really, it spoke to exactly why my consultancy worked for a lot of people. It's because you show up and you actually do the thing together. And it spoke to why this training, this Optima programs, like really helped me, because we all show up and we work through these things together. So this emerging side project called the Do the Thing Club is exactly that. I've actually partnered with the CEO at FocusMate, and we have an exclusive kind of group where we can use the FocusMate tool to connect with one another for people who need a little more accountability, for people who need to schedule it sounds cheesy, but we all have dreams bigger than our to-do lists and bigger than our calendars. And so what the Do the Thing Club is really about is focusing on carving time for those big things that just keep getting put second place, keep putting on the back burner. Do the thing is not do all of the things, it's do the thing that is really important to you. And whether it's building your business, whether it's, writing music, whether it's writing a book, that book that you've always wanted to write, the Do the Thing Club is designed to be an accountability partnership and a co-working kind of network so that people can sign up, meet each other, create that community, and have that feeling of you both show up and you're doing the thing together, even if you're doing separate things. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And I realized for a while that that's exactly the kind of model that really works for me and a lot of other people who call themselves chronic procrastinators. It's not that you're dumb or lazy. It's just you need help. We all do. We all need that connection and accountability and that community. So the Do the Thing Club is in beta right now. You can sign up at dothethingclub.com to get notified when we actually officially launch. But that's the side project that has been growing into more than just a side project. But I'm very, very excited about it.
Oh my God, that's so awesome, because I know for myself, and I think this is just an issue for anybody who's a freelancer, remote worker in the gig economy. It can be lonely. You don't, like for me, I don't have like a water cooler, like I can go to a co-working space, but we all have our headphones in, so knowing that you can have that accountability is really awesome. And I think that is something that, I mean, we can switch gears here and talk more about freelancing, because I'm interested to hear your opinion on what stops people from freelancing. Do you think it's worry about procrastinating? Do you think it's just not doing the thing? Like, I do know people who kind of start up and start off with it. But, pour out your thoughts on the art of freelancing, how to get started, and how to like keep going with it.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I think a lot of people are just freaking scared. There is I believe a false idea, but it's still, it's a legit worry, but I think it's a false one of thinking that a 9-to-5 is a secure job. It's not. It never was. Even though, like in the past, there might have been somebody who worked for 40 years in something like UPS, I don't know, and then got a really great retirement package. I don't think that's like the kind of security, like it depends on how much you value security and how much you value living your life to your own terms. So I think that becoming a freelancer for me was definitely a jump off the ledge, so to speak. I think about all of the ups and downs and all of the great months, 10K months, and all of the months that were very much not 10K months. and I know that I wouldn't change it for the world. And I also know if somebody told me how hard it would be, I probably wouldn't have started. So I actually used my naivety to my advantage. And I just did the thing. I just did it. And I never, ever regretted it. It's hard, but I never regretted it. And I know that, starting off as a freelancer and also keeping to that. It's funny, this is exactly the course that I'm teaching through the Optimate program. But starting as a freelancer and keeping at it, it takes some grit and determination and both a love for what you do and a disgust for what you don't want to do. I've been tempted away a couple of times. Again, I'm here in the Bay Area and I've got tech skills. So a couple of recruiters from like Apple and things like that have reached out to me. And I'm like, oh my God, I could do it. I make little calculations in my head and I go, nope, I can't do it. I just can't do it, especially including the commute, including that if I'm working in such a big company, I'd basically be doing a bunch of copy and paste jobs that aren't very creative or, like I'd be one cog in a very big machine. And I don't like that feeling at all. So as soon as I get the taste of that freedom that the freelancer, like there's a freedom in especially scheduling in the calendar that a freelancer has that nobody else really has, or at least a business owner. Like that you get to decide your time. And to me, that is so much more valuable to decide how I spend my time than it is money. Like I will take the hills and valleys of the income in order to have that flexibility, in order to be able to do the music that is in me that needs to come out, and in order to do the projects that are fulfilling to me, and in order to work with the clients I want to work with, rather than, take whatever lands on my desk and I have to or else.
Yeah. And it's a quality of life thing for folks who are listening who are like, I would love to work for Apple or Google. Keep in mind the average tenure at those companies is 2.5 years. Yeah. People like to move on. I've worked with people who have worked for some of these companies, and there is a definite trade-off to have that brand name. So if you're thinking like, Suzanne doesn't know what she's talking about, no, Suzanne does know what she's talking about. Have to make those trade-offs. And if you're somebody who does want to do the freelancing, you want the flexibility, you do have to make those sort of considerations in your career because there's always going to be a trade-off. It's not always greener on the other side. It doesn't matter if they're like, you can program on a beanbag chair. It does always help. But Suzanne, that's a very good answer. I know that we're getting towards the end of our interview, and I really want to make sure that we can get some advice from you on, you said something about your being naive and things like that when it comes to, the freelancing, the solo entrepreneur life. What other advice would you give to people who want to start out with this? I know it's do the thing, but after you do the thing, what's the next bit of advice?
Yeah. Okay. So that's assuming that you're just starting out as a freelancer. You made the decision. Somebody did tell me to keep at it for 2 years. And that, because I was having some full-blown panic attacks when I first started out. And somebody told me, keep at it for 2 years. And if after 2 years you want to go back to the 9 to 5, then do it. Go back. And that was 5 years ago. So I think the biggest advice is keep at it. Don't burn out. Take weekends. Really take weekends. Hold them as sacrosanct. If somebody says, do you do weekends? You say, no, I am busy, because you are busy not doing work. I even took it to another degree where I had time blocking is really important to me. So I take client calls Monday through Thursdays in the afternoons, in early evenings. And that is the only time I take calls. All the mornings are either for me or for working on my business. The afternoons are for me working in the business and helping the clients. And then my Fridays are my music days. And I do not take appointments, even if somebody begs and pleads, can you please do the Friday? You either pay me a surcharge to do a Friday, or no, there's no Fridays. So that was essential for me to keep going, because if I burn out, everybody loses. I lose, my clients lose, my music loses. If I burn out and can't do anything, because I have felt that burnout and it's real. So do anything that you can to protect that. And, if you are one of those people that can work through the weekends and not feel exhausted, I am in awe. I don't think that you're human, but okay.
I don't think they exist. I think some people think they can, and
yes,
3 years down the line, they have some sort of weird chronic illness, and everyone's like, how'd you get an ulcer? And you're like, I don't know.
I don't know. I just never took a vacation in 5 years. Yeah. So yeah, weekends and the occasional vacation or occasional extended weekend, those are sacred to me and nobody else can touch them.
Good. That is really important, because I know that when people start out with a business, they don't realize that, one, boundaries are important, and two, you have to train your clients in how to treat you. And if you have a client, because most of your business objectives or whatever it is, if you can't do it in your 40-hour work week, either you've overscheduled yourself, or there's a time management problem, or there's a system operations issue somehow in your workflow, and you will need to address that. And if you have a client who does not get that, then they have maybe one of those problems, or they are maybe not the right kind of client that you want, because if you don't have a choice in who you work with, you might as well just have a regular job.
Exactly. Amen.
So I am so glad that you brought that up, because that is the hardest lesson for every freelancer. Yeah. It was my problem in the beginning, for sure. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because no matter where you are in your business journey, there does come a day when you have to make sure that you do take care of yourself. Now, Suzanne, this has been an awesome conversation. Now, before we go, I want to make sure that everyone listening who wants to reach out with you or find out more, they can do so. So give us all the details. Where can we find you? How can we work with you? I mean, tell us all the deets.
All the details. Okay. So as a Facebook and Instagram ads specialist, I do have some free tutorials for the creative entrepreneur if you identify as that. And it's usually service-based entrepreneurs and freelancers and artists, activists, anybody like that. You can go to yadacreative.com, YADA creative.com. And at the bottom, there's a little place where you can sign up for some free modules and some pretty low cost, like do-it-yourself kind of training. And if you wanted to work with me one-on-one, you can also book a half hour of a consult for free on that website. So yadacreative.com is the main hub.
And then Yada, I kept saying Yada. Oh, you should have corrected me.
You know what? There's a split in my family. So I no longer correct people. It just like, it's Yada or Yada. It doesn't even matter.
Gotcha. Tomato, tomato. Wait, good.
Tomato, tomato. Yeah. So there's Yada Creative. I do pronounce it Yada, but then there's like a branch that doesn't, and it was a foreign language anyway, so nobody knows. Anyway, so and then I, for my side project, Do the Thing Club. That's at dothethingclub.com. You can sign up to get on the email list, and I'll notify you when that's live and active. And I'm very excited about that. And also, just as a musician, I'm littlespiral.com.
Fabulous. Awesome. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for being on my show and giving me all the details. This was awesome. And I know for all the other multi-passionate, creative entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, that I know that they're going to get something out of your story. And I hope that they really do think about the possibilities. Even if you have goals that might not be business, they might be creative, they might be music, whatever, you can design a career that you love on your own terms. It might take elbow grease, it might take boundaries, it might take mentorship, it might take 5 years.
Yep. Be patient with yourself, one thing at a time. Like, even though I'm like have all sorts of irons in the fire, it's like one thing at a time. Just keep one foot ahead of the other. You got this.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much again, Suzanne. And
absolutely.
And thank you all for listening. As always, I'm Sami Gardner, your career specialist. Bye. Change your career, change your life at CareerKickstartAcademy.com.